welcome to Career Competitor, where we welcome guests to share insights that will light the fire within you to make a career of competing. Whether that be in your career, your business, your personal life, or simply within you. As the competitor within you might just be the greatest competition in your world. While I have you here, take the time to be rating the show, especially if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts. Also, be sure to subscribe or follow the show on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to us on. Finally, be sure to head to careercompetitor.com, where you can learn all about what it is I offer within my executive coaching company and what it is I could potentially do to you as an individual or on behalf of you within your team and or organization. I would love the opportunity to connect with you, so be sure to reach out to me, steve@careercompetitor.com. That's steve@careercompetitor.com. But like I said, head to the website and be sure to check out everything that I offer and to learn more about how I can be of impact to you within your world. But for now, let's welcome in our guest for this episode of Career Competitor. Okay, our career competitor today is the CEO and co-founder of Biddnamic, a marketing technology platform that helps retailers unlock the full potential of Google Shopping, and he's joining us from Leeds in the UK today. When you consider our guest started their first business at age 14, you get a feel of the entrepreneurial characteristics we will dive into today, but also how they have very much grown up through the age of e-commerce and are able to provide such an abundance of insight on how this space can leverage an individual's business success. An expert on e-commerce, digital marketing, advertising, tech, and startups, our guest has been featured on platforms such as the BBC, Business Insider, Internet Retailing, and of course now the Career Competitor podcast. I am excited to be welcoming in a fellow countryman in that of Mr. Liam Patterson. Liam, how are we doing?
Yeah, great. Real pleasure to be with you.
Yes, I'm delighted to have you. It's always a delight for me to not have to almost force a weird American English accent. I can just be completely authentic myself with you today, and no need for any kind of translations of any kind. So that's fantastic. But firstly, mate, why don't I just give you some space here just to tell us all about Biddnamic and what it is you do with the company today.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the CEO. So we work with hundreds of retailers. They're typically fast growth businesses. They might have just amazing product success. Some really massive brands that we work with, such as Volcom, the surf and skate brand, loads of fast fashion retailers like Opoly. Some just incredible brands that have just had breakthrough success with their direct to consumer model. And we really assist them on the channel of paid search. So whenever people go to Google, they type in what they're looking for, and specifically within Google search, we help with Google Shopping, which is a carousel that comes up. You probably see it whenever you go there looking for a product. You'll see this carousel of products, shows little tiles, little images, shows the price, the description of the product. And effectively, we come in to help retailers who are using this channel to get even more effective at it. So typically it's to break through, increasing the volume that they're getting from that channel. So they're getting more clicks, more sales, more revenue. Or they're happy with the volumes they're getting through. They're happy with the revenue volume. But actually, when they look and factor in things like return rates, exchanges, refunds, cancellations, the cost of their marketing spend, their overhead, actually, it's just not profitable for them, or just not profitable enough. So typically, we get the call as a company when they're a fast growth company, maybe venture backed, and they're looking to really grow the profitability of this channel or the volume that's coming through from that channel. And that's when we get involved to aid with that mission.
I love it. So you, in many ways, just bring into fruition the goals, the ideas of a high appetite company, a company that is eager to get in, get their hands dirty, do the work, and they just need a little bit of help with getting from wherever it is they are to wherever it is they feel they have the potential to get to. And I know you do a lot and speak a lot to that term potential. You know, just having read into you guys, it's clear that there's something about a potential that you maybe gravitate towards in each client that you work with that seems to very much just bring the best out of you. So let's start there. Like when someone comes to you and says, hey, this is what we see our potential being, and for whatever reason, we're just not getting there. How do you maybe meet with them in that type of space, and what's the first sort of steps look like?
Yeah, sure. So we're really data driven. So because the marketing channel we're in of Google search is very data driven, there's an explicit amount of people going to search and causing what they call impressions, which is when the ads show up. We're able to really deep dive and leverage that data. So my co-founder has a PhD. We've got a big team now of researchers, and we're able to look at all these huge amount of numbers and data points and really distill down what the actual potential is for their products in a given geography, such as the US or the UK, at a given time, such as right now in the market. And we're able to tell them this is the opportunity of how many people are searching today for exactly what you're selling. And this is the opportunity to reach them in terms of the likely profitability you're going to be able to get. And so we're able to give these kind of guidance based on both perceived potential, but actually on data-driven potential as well. And maybe one of the things I should say about Biddnamic is that we're not an agency, we're not a team of freelancers, we're a software company. So we have teams of researchers with decades of in their PhD research. We've also got many software engineers, and that's the approach that we bring to play is leveraging and understanding that data, applying it to that channel to uncover the potential which is hidden in this myriad of numbers, which can often feel quite overwhelming to individuals or to teams that just want to get on and grow their business.
Yeah, that it speaks to me huge, just huge amounts just in my work as an executive coach, because as I'm listening to you talk, I'm hearing these buzzwords such as it's one thing to feel as though there's opportunity out there, but to actually pinpoint where the opportunity is and then insert yourself very much deliberately with a strategy. It actually gives that word opportunity a little bit more meaning, because we use that quite, almost passively at times. Oh, I see an opportunity there. I see an opportunity there. But you're saying, no. This isn't just an opportunity. This is an opportunity that you should have actually been in yesterday. You should have been
exactly.
seizing the opportunity as of yesterday. And here's the data that's going to support that. So when you start to provide this information, I'm curious, because everything that we're about on this podcast is like, how do we optimize ourselves in order to become more competitive at what we do?
Yeah.
So when you see those sort of opportunities, how do you, let's say to me, who's not a techie, who's not really up on his software IQ, how do you maybe put that in layman's terms to someone and say, hey, look at this opportunity here. This is why you should have been in this place as of at least now, if not yesterday.
Yeah, so in the context of Biddnamic, in terms of the channel we're operating in, we would just say, look, there's people looking for what you're selling. For that, whatever the product is, maybe the headphones that you're wearing there, people are going to Google and they're actively looking. They're not passive, they're actively searching for the products you sell. Do you want to be a part of that conversation? Do you want to have the opportunity to grab that click, send it to your website and convert it into a sale? So that would be how we kind of quantify that opportunity in layman's terms, is that we're bringing their supply, their products, their warehousing, their inventory to the demand which is coming through Google of people actively searching for what they're looking for. So
yeah, I love that. And it's that almost disruption, right? Someone's going about their day and they didn't necessarily think of this being the specific product that they needed, but through the type of support that you can provide, you're suddenly now putting this roadblock, if you will, in someone's day. And it's like, oh, I didn't realize this is what I was looking for, but heck, now I'm here. Might as well just give it a look. And slowly but surely, this is how we start to gear more traffic towards something like a product or a service. So I love that. And I love learning more about Biddnamic, and I'm sure we're going to come back around to it. But I want to get to your journey a little bit. When you read something like, this is a guy that started a business at 14, there's an entrepreneurial element to that speaks to me. Now, I didn't start a business until I was 36. However, looking back, I saw the seeds, if you will, of my entrepreneurial spirit to this day. I'm curious, where the heck does that even begin? How at the age of 14 do you go, hey, you know what? Decent idea. Let's run with this. Let's start a business. So how does that even begin?
Yeah, I think I'd say that entrepreneurship probably runs in my blood a bit. So my grandparents, both my grandfathers, ran their own businesses. So one was a plumber, self-employed, doing a plumbing business. Post World War II. My other grandfather was a publican, so running pubs around Birmingham. And then my parents, both my mum and dad ran their own business in the space of training, and before that in a few different things that they'd kind of carved out their own path. So I suppose I was always surrounded by entrepreneurship, even though it might not have been called that. It might have been called whatever right. It would be called back then, blagging, hustling, whatever right. it was. So I suppose, from my grandparents right to my parents. And so it was quite natural, I think, to be surrounded by that. And then, when I was growing up, there was kind of people emerging as role models really at the very inception of their careers. And in the media, things like Richard Branson was always kind of an early role model that became on the scene right at the beginning of his career with the Virgin Records and things like that. And obviously he's continued to catapult his own success, and that kind of created that spark. And I was fortunate enough as a young kid to be surrounded by friends who also had that interest, had that passion. Grew up in a relatively boring place in Buxton in Derbyshire, so it's a rural town in the Peak District. There's no cinemas, there's no kind of bowling, there's no pre-made entertainment. So the people really divide into two camps. The people who would complain, there's no pre-made entertainment, there's no bowling, we're too far away, there's no cinema, there's no etc. And the people who would just be like, they're go-getters, they say, cool, we're in the middle of nowhere, let's go camping, let's go kayaking, let's go do this thing, let's go, let's create fun, create something out of nothing. And that they were my tribe. They were the people that I gravitated to as friends, and naturally the internet kind of came on the scene. So and then it was this huge opportunity that I was lucky enough to be surrounded by the beginning of e-commerce, and this is a long time ago now, but I remember that there was the likes of QXL, which was the main marketplace, e-commerce marketplace back here. So before Amazon was created or got a foothold at all, then gravitated from QXL to eBay. eBay started to come on the scenes, and just sourcing things from car boot sales. A friend of mine threw up, who I worked with together on our first venture, Mike. We threw up a really simple e-commerce store, but really cutting edge for its time, and started listing things onto our own little e-commerce store, and then we were selling through QXL, then through eBay. We were suddenly getting orders from all around the world, just going to different shops and finding different kind of products that we could sell. And because the internet was so nascent back then, there was literally thousands of shops, not millions and tens of millions like there is today. That these channels were just totally open. They were so uncompetitive. They were so easy back then. Technically, they were difficult. You had to build a website, you had to code, you had to do loads and loads of things that are now super accessible. Those barriers have come down, but the barriers for competitiveness, for people being able to do this, has skyrocketed. There's now so many e-commerce entrepreneurs, so many great products out there. Whereas back then, it really wasn't. If you just had a product, you could sell it. So that was where the hustle started as a young age of just finding all sorts of things. We got my friend and I got the digital Del Boys, so sourcing all kinds
reference.
of stuff.
Americans aren't going to get that one. British reference,
exactly. Yeah. So Del Boy from Only Fools and Horses, a BBC TV show. Yeah. Exactly. So and that was really the beginning of that journey, and then I've just stayed in e-commerce ever since. So came to university in Leeds. Got into the sport of fencing, sword fighting, that kind of thing. Arrived at Leeds University, and there was a big club. There's a big waiting list of maybe 200 students that wanted to try the sport that I'm really passionate about. And there was enough kit for maybe 20 people. And that year we had when we joined the club, it just got a lottery grant. So the people who'd been running the club before had set it up nicely. They got the lottery grant for us when we joined, and we thought, great, we'll buy the kit. We'll get the 150 people into the sport, and off we go. But it was enough to buy about 20 sets of kit. So the first thing we had to do was scrub through 100 people that could do the sport that we're super passionate about. And the equipment was made in the UK. It's literally made in London and Berlin, the two main suppliers. So super expensive place to manufacture. Most expensive places in Europe for living and for manufacturing. So that led me to my first kind of import business, which was to source fencing equipment, so swords, jackets, masks, all that equipment from China. I got UK and Ireland exclusivity, brought that product in, and that was the first entry point into a retail e-commerce retail business, so a niche e-commerce retail business. So again, set up the e-commerce store, ran it through different clubs and fencing clubs, and targeted publications, targeted search terms on Google, and grew that business into a significant business that's still run by my brother and my father today, which is a nice touch. Yeah,
that's brilliant. But I loved. I'm going to stop you there because mainly because there was so much stuff that you just said that I want to go back over and cover. And the first part of this is it's almost that the coach in me whenever I hear something that requires a reframe, I can't help but sort of bring it up. And for you to say something along the lines of lucky enough to be there when e-commerce started really becoming a thing. And you reference Richard Branson there too as someone to look towards. And when you look at his career from the outside looking in, it's really easy just to say, okay, this guy was just really fortunate. He was always there at the right time, blah, blah, blah. But I always push back against that stuff. And it's like, we were all there. We were all there at the right time. We were all around at that time. But he chose to do something about it. And the same goes with yourself. Like for your story, sure, the internet was coming on the scene. Sure, there was now this thing called e-commerce or whatever it was referenced as back then. But it still required you saying to you and your mate, hey, listen, I see potential here. I see something that I don't think anyone around us sees. And I'm really curious because another part that you referenced here was this community of having self-starters around you there when you were growing up as a kid. Do you feel as though that you were a result of that community and that's why you went after this? Or was the potential for it and that you saw in it enough that it wouldn't have mattered what space or what world you were living in at the time? Almost the gravitational pull of the opportunity to get into this, that would have been enough. Do you feel like it was one or the other?
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of both, I'd say. So it's about being around the right people who would support, they had that same drive, they had that same passion, they were always doing interesting and fun things, and their mindset was to create interesting opportunities, whether that was in business or in activities that they went off and did, and many of them are now running their own companies as well, as an interesting kind of caveat in different fields, and then there was that combination of the opportunity, I guess, and that drive with a good friend of mine that then created this buzz as well. Yeah. I like getting that, and just to go one step further now with that you referencing yourself as someone that was fortunate, lucky enough to be where you were at that time. I'm curious, as you've gone on through this journey, as I referenced there in the introduction, you've grown up as this industry has grown up, and you've evolved, I assume, with it as it's evolved. And so with that being said, at any point, you could have just hopped off, right? The more and more competitive it got, the more and more people that came to the table, at any point, you could have hopped off. Let's go back to Richard Branson. The more airlines that came up, the more whatever things he was involved in that came up, he didn't see that as a reason to hop off. He saw that as a reason almost to invest further. And clearly that's what you've done. I'm curious, when you've seen those evolutions really start to gain traction in this space, what is it about it that's kept you not only involved, but invest more and more as the years have gone by? Yeah, I think it's you build a passion as for anything that you do, and you get better at, and you train at, and you start to pattern recognize, or certainly I do. So you start to see the connections of business models, of metrics, of approaches, of styles, and it almost becomes like you're pattern recognizing the success and failure even before it can happen. It almost becomes a bit of a recipe for how it's done. And I think as you level up, as in any sport, as in any hobby, you get, as you move up to becoming more and more expert at the field, you start to realize the next challenge. It doesn't suddenly get boring. It's like, oh, this is the next challenge. This is the next challenge. And as you get that, you can appreciate even more nuances and more strategies that become open to you. And I think that's what keeps that passion is that. And I think particularly when you're in a market which is growing so quickly, both in terms of the demand, we just have to look. There was, very, very few people shopping online, and now post pandemic, there's just and pre, during the pandemic, it's just absolutely skyrocketed. So we've seen this huge wave of demand in e-commerce. It's now, just almost just commerce, right? We just buy online. We don't really think about it being a separate thing. Yeah. And also we've seen the tools and the strategies that people have done to level up, getting, and to meet those expectations of clients and of shoppers are just getting more and more complex. And many of the channels that we as retailers or e-commerce retailers go through to get in front of customers have become more competitive. So you've had to level up your game as the customer's expectations of delivery times, of UX, of site experiences, as media channels such as Google have become more competitive. You've got to be leveraging that next level. So it's almost like I think that's what's really driven me into to stay interested in it, is that it's continually moving, it's continually getting more competitive, but actually the opportunity is continually rising as well.
Yeah, now you're singing from my hymn sheet. Just when we start talking about patterns, when we start talking about recipes for success, but also just building passion from that. Really starting to say, listen, it's one thing for me to identify the passion. To identify the pattern and recognize that there is a recipe for how you can be successful. But then you have to have the passion to do the work, and that's what I was alluding to earlier. Was just like, again, it's so easy just to say, yeah, right place, right time, right place, right place. But it's never that simple. And I'm assuming that if we had the time, you could probably allude to numerous days where it's been grueling, it's been hard, it's been an absolute climb. But here you are now today, and I'm just curious. I don't want to just bypass the athlete part of this story too. There you are, someone that did fencing, and I think this may even be a first for the show. I don't think we've had a fencer before, and I love that. So with that being said, I'm curious, where did that athlete / maybe competitive element within you, where did that start to first maybe show its head, and how does it continue to show its head today?
Yeah, so I think, in terms of the kind of sports side of things, it just happened to be one of the sports that was available in Buxton, although it's a niche sport in a small place. Yeah. Someone was obviously passionate, set up the club, and it's a very interesting sport. So it's called, a lot of people reference it to it like as physical chess. Mm-hmm. So it has that dynamic, has that very, very quick speed, but it's very, very tactical. You've got to get your opponent to move in a certain direction at a certain speed. That means that they've then overcommitted to a certain position, and you can then execute on that on your attack, and they're going to be unable to counterattack or to block your attack at it. And so it's very much a tactical game combined with obviously a physical component as well of being an athlete, I guess. It took that right the way through to kind of national level in terms of and university level, so competing around the country. And my co-founder, actually, that's how I met my co-founder Ingvar, who's also a very good fencer, actually much better than me. He fenced in Germany and trained much harder than myself. And nowadays I'm just a runner, so I do a bit of running. I did my first marathon at the end of last year, so I think it's keep up something to keep the mind going, and again, I think now with running, it's more almost meditative. So if I've had a busy day, my mind's whirring, I've got something that I really want to think through deeply, a long run or an intense run almost like kickstarts my imagination, kickstarts that processing of that information and that data in my mind, and then and burns off the stress as well. So
Yeah, I relate to that massively, and I kick myself all the time when I go for runs without my phone or my headphones, and I get into that meditative state, and these ideas come, and I go, "There's no way I'm remembering it. It's on the run, and it's floated in. It's now floated into the atmosphere, and maybe one day it'll return and come back." But I relate to that, and I can't help as well but see those connections between that fencing background, the strategy, the tactics that go into that sport, the ability to step forwards and step back when you need to know how to, and just that how metaphorical that is for everything that you've probably done here in the last couple decades with all the work in e-commerce. And I do now want to come back to Biddnamic because it's a global company. You've got offices here in the US, in Austin, and I'm just curious now because I love finding out. It's great that you've gotten to where you are now, but the one thing I've noticed with just about every person that comes on this show is I don't think I've ever interviewed someone who says, that's it, I'm done. You know, they've always got many, many more chapters that they're still trying to write. So with where you are today, mate, like what is the next step? What is that next chapter looking like for Bidnamic?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've grown. We're now a team of around 140 staff. We've got the two offices in the UK in Leeds, and we've also got the office in Austin, Texas as well. Mm-hmm. So a big focus for us over the 18 months kind of ahead of us is all around a US expansion. So we recently had our first round of investment towards the late end of last year. Until then, we've been bootstrapped, angel funded, reinvesting our own growth, which got us to around a size of about 80, 90. And now we've been able to really scale up the business with that investment into kind of internationalization, growing into the US market. We've got some amazing clients and brands, and also into R&D. So we've got a lot of focus into our research and engineering teams, those big PhD research teams, engineering teams, and that's particularly around new products that we're bringing to market. So we've got some really interesting pieces of this, almost like tactics that we see can be enabled through machine learning, through digitization of those strategies, and we're really excited to bring those pieces to start to complement each other and really drive up the performance. So yeah, really exciting new products that we're going to have to work still in that same e-commerce customer acquisition space. Right. But yeah, they're going to enable new strategies and new techniques as well.
Yeah, and I think that's there's something at the heart of what you're saying here that I think a lot of people can benefit from hearing is how you hold on to those original principles, those original models that is the company, that is your mission while you go through expansion. Because I think people relate to this in the sense of anyone that's just trying to, if they're an individual that's trying to level up within their company, level up within their career, a lot of the time you feel this need, like I got to change who I am at my core. I got to completely reinvent myself to do this. And from what I've read about your evolution as an organization is that you've clearly held true to your ideals and principles as growth has come your way. And so I'd love for you just to speak to that. How have you been able to stay so familiar with these ideals that represent you at your core while going through expansion?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is so I'm actually a dyslexic myself, so I see that as a bit of a superpower. Yeah. So as I grow up, you get really good at the art of delegation, partly because you have to trust in people who are maybe helping you to read things, who are helping you to write things in the early stage. And typically people who are dyslexics kind of move to being very strong communicators and very visual thinkers as well. Actually, Richard Branson's also dyslexic, as a many successful entrepreneurs. So I think what that gave me was that the ability to delegate in a really good way, and to trust and to bring on board really good people who can see the vision of what we're building and why we're building it, and are able to bring in complementary skills, as opposed to, I know, other entrepreneurs, some of them which are friends who've not really fully let go of areas. So be it marketing, be it all the parts that you have to build out as you build out a larger organization. And then because they're still owning things, they're maybe overlapping with people, maybe stepping on people's toes. There's not that full ownership by individuals, and then that can lead to friction. Whereas I think with that, I've been able to delegate down to very, very effective, very good people who've then been able to build teams within their functions as we've grown. And I think the other part of it is we've done an amazing job, and something I'm really proud of in the business is on hiring people who aren't in a certain model. I think a lot of people will say, right, we need to hire people who are exactly in my cut, my ilk. They've got this in their CV, they've got this many years of experience, they're experts at this, they went to this top university, they studied this field, they've been at this company name, big name companies. Whereas what we've been really, really good at is saying, okay, if we're not going to hire based on your past experience, the university, we're going to hire based on your drive, your motivation, your attitude, and because we can coach the rest. And that's what we've been able to do really, really thoroughly, really, really well. Certainly on the sales, the marketing, the client success pieces. Certainly with engineering, they're very skilled and very educated. But but yeah, certainly. Yeah, that's the one of the key takeaways is that art of delegation, which we've been able to do really good, passing it down to a great team, and also being able to take people in who don't fit maybe a traditional mold, who are able to find some amazing and incredibly talented people who then stayed with the organization and have really thrived in the business as well.
Yeah, and that ability to recognize the need to not be almost a victim of transit of tradition. To be able to say, listen, hey, if we stay traditional in an ever evolving field, then how do we continue to evolve? And so many of those principles of hiring on education, hiring on prior experience, they are slowly becoming almost extinct ideals that you look for in a ever evolving field. And if you are still relying on them, chances are you're not evolving at the same speed as the others around you. And I think that's huge. And I also hear so many of those very same principles that you came and were raised on, like that community of self-starters. You've managed to almost sustain that by the sounds of it. You've recognized the benefits that provided to you early on in life, and how it set you up on this fantastic course. So in a way, while tradition doesn't make sense to speak to or implement in some areas, you're able to still separate, hey, listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, from other parts of the business and from other parts of your life as well. And I think there's so much value in that. It almost sounds like you've just got a bunch of mates just doing some work together. Is that about right?
Yeah, exactly. It's certainly got a big group of mates now.
Yeah, I love
but
it.
Yeah, no, it's a really fun, and I think that fun comes out in, I'm all about the journey. So a lot of people can be about the destination. They care about what it's going to be like when they get to X, when they get Y asset or thing. But for me, it's always been about the journey and the challenge of that journey, and that's where the fun is. It's fun to be playing the game, to be having those challenges, having those wins, and those and that whole journey, and just appreciating kind of mindfulness of what we're going through, how we're doing it, and I think that's a really important part of our culture, is not to be always thinking about the next thing, how it's going to be when we have X, when we have Y, but actually about just appreciating the moments, appreciating the time, and being really involved in that moment and enjoying it as well, having a good laugh, having good fun. And that's certainly something that we emulate in the company as well, where we can.
I love that. And again, there's a blueprint coming through this chat, Liam, that for anyone listening, I'm going to do as good a job as I possibly can when we're done with the interview, of just really breaking this down in almost formulaic, just saying like, hey, listen, there's an element of a formula here that if you're willing and bold enough almost to consider it, that you can actually see a lot of individual progress and team progress for that matter too, if you are someone who's overseeing teams, overseeing an organization. So I love that, and that ability, that heightened awareness to being ever present throughout the journey. I very much embody that even in the work that I do with my clients. It's so powerful, it's so important, and it is what actually allows you to have fun. You can't really have fun if you're not present. If you're so focused on the future, it's near impossible to actually enjoy the moment. But you use the word win in there at one point, and it's a question I've gotten very used to asking now within the show, and I like to ask it towards the end. And for me, I'm just curious, with so much going on, with so many different people in different parts of the business and different parts of the world, how on earth, with where you are today, do you find ways to assess, okay, today was a win versus today wasn't so much a win? Like, how do you define a win in what you do today, mate?
Yeah, so we actually use a framework. So we use objectives and key results, or OKRs. So they're really, we've adopted them in the last, say, 6-7 months, and they've been absolutely game changing for us as a business. So the objective is where you want to get to, what the thing is that you're trying to move the needle on. That's like the strategy is the objective, and then the key result is how the team collectively is going to address that opportunity, and they go across different departments. So you can imagine that what a sales one might be, what a marketing one might be, and that'd be quite different to, say, a product team, which would be engineering, maybe feature based. And what it allows everyone to do is set out with total clarity, here are the 5 objectives for the business for the quarter. So everyone knows, okay, this is what matters. It's measurable, number based, where possible, to move from X to Y numerically. So everyone knows that is what we're all working towards as an organization, of 130, 140 people, and within your department, what is it that you can do to speak to those five objectives, and then they'll create these key results which speak to these, which are methods, which are projects, which are things that they collectively are going to do, and then they can set them as stretch targets. So they want to deliver, over deliver. So they're already taking themselves out of their comfort zone by where they're putting those. They're stretch targets that they're committing to, and then they're measured against it on a monthly cadence, in a way that is reflective. Is saying, okay, maybe we didn't make the progress there. What did we learn? Do we want to refine this? Do we need to refine it, or do we just need to keep going? And it's a really, really powerful way to benchmark the business, to benchmark that progress that's being made on an individual, on a team, whether it's cross-functional or departmental. And it just gives total clarity, because for many, many years, we've just gone on gut feel, which is great as a small business. But I think it actually robs you of that moment of stopping, pausing and saying, wow, we moved the numbers from here to there. Because maybe you do, and it's just accidental. You don't really know how you did it. You didn't do it with purpose in mind. So to me, it's just such a powerful framework to cascade down the organization, so that individuals, teams, and functions can suddenly see their impact on the whole business, on driving whatever that metric is: new product releases, thought leadership, all these other areas, revenue growth, client growth, feature adoption. So it's a really, really powerful way to align the whole organization. And then we can see on a monthly cadence, cool, where are things working, and get that sense of satisfaction and reward and achievement for everybody involved. Or maybe we can spot where our weaknesses are as well, where we're not achieving, where things are going a little bit off track, and those challenges, but we're able to catch them quite quickly and be mindful of the strategies that we put in place to deal with them going forwards.
Yeah, it's great to hear that desire to find alignment within the organization, and to do that through an established purpose, that consistent recognition of progress. But something that you said there too is identifying where there's an opportunity to make a change, to grow, to learn. We need to start seeing that as a win as well. Like, that is such valuable insight that allows us to do something the next day that, were we not to know that, we wouldn't be able to do. And that is actually a win. So again, like, people will hear that, oh, maybe put that one in the loss column for today. It's like, well, is it going to make you better for tomorrow? Yes, it is. So how is it not a win? And so that is such valuable insight. And honestly, Liam, I could probably just keep chatting to you for another 35, 40 minutes. I try to keep the episodes around this length in time. And I'm just so appreciative for how forthcoming and how generous you've been with your insight. But before I let you go, where does anyone and everyone need to go to find out more about Biddnamic, but also yourself?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, so Liam Patterson, and for the business, it's biddnamic.com, so biddnamic.com.
That's it. That's everything you need to know. All that information will be in the show notes, and any other information I think I need to share as well, just to continue supporting you, Liam, and everything that you're doing there with Biddnamic. And hey, whenever you come over to Austin next, I might have to just see if we can catch up for a pint or something like that.
That'll be an absolute pleasure. Yeah, looking forward to it, Steve. Yeah, thank you very much.
Liam, thank you so much for joining the show, mate. It's been a pleasure.
That's great. Thanks.
Hey, don't go anywhere. I've got my final thoughts coming up from our guest today. So please take some time, give it a moment, take a drink. I got a couple more minutes I need to get out of you. Some final thoughts. Here we go. And my thanks again to Liam for joining us on the show today. And as I alluded to while we were talking, I referenced how so much of what Liam presented had a formulaic component. And I spent some time after the episode just really thinking about what these components are, what the major themes that I think you, the listener, can really stand to embrace. And this isn't just about if you're thinking of starting a business. For me, this is a really nice formula for being successful, reaching optimal performance, at least the cycles that come with reaching optimal performance. So this is how, based on our conversation, I decided to break it down. Firstly, appetite to create opportunities. That comes through in such abundance with Liam. That curiosity of nature to find the opportunities that are out there in some cases just to simply get started, or opportunities that exist in order to realize that there's something worth getting started on. And that nicely ties me into step 2, which is get involved. Don't show reluctance. Don't create problems or reasons as to why you cannot get started. Just get involved. Get involved, no matter how unfamiliar you may be to what it is you're getting involved with. Because to have that appetite to create opportunities doesn't really make a lot of sense if you don't have that willingness to get involved. So step 2 is get involved. Step 3 is recognize patterns. Once you're actually involved and once you're actually gaining some momentum with the work that you're doing, take the time to stop and look around and look back on the patterns that are in place, the patterns that are starting to present themselves to the point where you can start to almost anticipate the direction within which you are going with the work that you're doing. And the final step of what is this 4-step formula that I came up with from Liam was a willingness to adapt with the evolution, a willingness to adapt. So again, these 3 steps that I've previously mentioned, they all serve and contribute towards success, but a willingness to adapt as that world around you is evolving is crucial, because again, it ties you right back to that first step of having that appetite to create opportunities. Because you have a willingness to adapt, because you have a willingness to just simply monitor what is evolving around you within your respective industry, you can now stop and seize opportunities that are going on around you within these evolutions. Which is what I like about these 4 steps that I've just presented, is the fact of the matter is it's cyclical. You go back to the start at any given point based on what is going on within your industry. So just to recap, having an appetite to create opportunities, getting involved, recognizing patterns, and then having a willingness to adapt with the evolution going on around you. I think that's a really great way of just looking at how to pursue success, how to pursue optimal performance. And I think it can serve just about anybody in any respective field that you may be operating within. So I thank Liam again for his generosity of insight, of time, and just the impact that he's been able to provide in this discussion today. And I thank you as well, the listener, for tuning in and having that appetite to be successful. That's what this show's all about. The willingness to listen to our show means you have that curiosity to raise standards of performance within your respective industry, within your respective career, and hey, within your life as well. So I thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure you're encouraging people to give it a listen as well. Share it with folks. Take the time to rate the show as well. 5 stars is always appreciated for those listening to us on Apple Podcasts. And in the meantime, guys, listen, keep up the great work, whatever it is you're doing. And I look forward to doing this all again with you very soon. Bye for now.